Welcome to the Mischief Maker broadcast, where chaos, creativity, and common sense collide. Your host, Joel Freeman, was kicked out of high school in Alberta, Canada. He left home at 17 and hitchhiked around North America as a long-haired hippie and dope-smoking fool. He made a 180-degree change, becoming one of the first chaplains in the history of the NBA. As a professional speaker, Joel has traveled to well over 55 countries. His many books have been published in 28 foreign translations. Pieces from his Black History collection have been seen by millions at the United Nations and many other venues. And now, the Chief Mischief Maker himself, Dr. Joel A. Freeman.
Hey guys, Baby Joel here with the joke of the week. How do you make a tissue dance? You put a little boogie in it. Okay, that's the unfiltered Baby Joel. You know, we try very hard to put a filter on Baby Joel, but it just doesn't work. And wait till you hear from bigger Baby Joel and teenager Joel. They all have their own vibe about them. Tonight, whenever you're watching this, we have quite a show for you. A good friend of mine named Bob Dees, Major General Bob Dees to some, Bob Dees to others, Robert Dees to his mother when he was in trouble. But we got Bob Dees with us. He is quite an individual. He and I have spent time a number of times. We've been fishing for 3 days, first bite to last light in Bahamas, and just love this guy. Love this man. You're going to enjoy this. Well, he's an expert in national security. We're not going to talk a whole lot about that because this is a politics-free zone, but also in the topic of resilience. He's written 3 books, a trilogy of books on resilience, Resilient Nations, Resilient Warriors, and Resilient Leaders. Those 3. You can find them on Amazon, wherever books are sold. And also he has quite a seminar set up for on resilience. I could take people deep and wide on this particular topic. He served as a U.S. Ranger in his 31-year Army career, and he was in the 101st Airborne Division of as an assistant division commander. All those who in the military and the Army especially will go hooah, and you will be heard by General Bob Dees. Even though, well, anyway. And also he was the commander of the Second Infantry Division in Korea, commander of the combined U.S.-Israeli Task Force for Missile Defense, and also he served in the private sector for Microsoft Corporation as an executive, director of the nation's first Institute for Military Resilience, where he pioneered resilience programs for service members. And now, I'll tell you what, he has opened up, he and his wife and his whole team of people have opened up something called the National Center for Healthy Veterans. It's a village that has developed. I remember going there. It's in Virginia, Alta Vista, Virginia, and it's just outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, for those who are from that area. And I can remember walking around, and there's where the horses are, and there's a little house here, and there's some. I could just see the twinkle in his eye. Well, this is going to be one village, and we're going to have another village, and then we're going to have another village over here, and we're going to have a kind of an event center, a riding arena, horses, cows, chickens, and all the rest. Guess what? You're about to hear from him on all of that. So healthyveterans.org is how you can kind of peek in on this. Now you look above, and you're going to see a QR code. For those who aren't on your cell phone, you can use your cell phone to go to chiefmischiefmaker.com. Now, I've done some changes on that. For some of you who've tried it before and it wasn't loading properly. Guess what? I think we cured that. And so we're going to, when you go there, there's a whole link tree where you can learn about our sponsor, which is Rosetta Universe. You can learn about the music. You can learn about all kinds of different things. You can check in on our other guests on how to contact them. You can go to a link on my YouTube channel where you can see any of the past programs, shows on the Mischief Maker Show. Plus, and here's the kicker right here. You may wonder, why is this called the Mischief Maker Show? Well, we have a definition on chiefmischiefmaker.com on what a mischief maker is and how you can become a mischief maker in your part of the world. And what does that mean? So right now we're going to listen to a song I wrote and produced. It's called, well, you've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and my goodness, I got I got one of these fancy cameras that moves when I move my hand. So guess what? When I go like this, it tells it to stop. So just put a little bit of inside baseball on that. So I want to welcome you if you're in Australia, Great Britain, Canada, U.S., Japan, I don't know, some of the other places, Belgium, Germany. We welcome you. This song is called Selfaholics Anonymous. And listen closely to the words, and then we'll meet you on the other side in about 4 minutes.
We admit we're powerless over self-absorption. Our lives unmanageable, drowning in distortion. Came to believe in the power greater than our pride, the redemptive plan that restores us to sanity inside. Negative impacts linger from the selfishness we've sown. Isolation, broken bonds, a heart of heavy stone. But when we choose unselfishness, 3 blessings come to light. Peace within, true connections, and a future shining bright. Selfaholics Anonymous, we gather here today to find a higher power who shows us a better way. Turn our will to someone greater, let go of our own. Walking through these lonely steps, we're never alone. Negative impacts linger from the selfishness we've sown. Isolation, broken bonds, a heart of heavy stone. But when we choose unselfishness, 3 blessings come to light. Peace within, true connections, and a future shining bright. A searching moral inventory of our private fears, facing every selfish act with repentance and tears. Direct amends to those we've harmed, healing broken ties. Unselfishness brings freedom, light within our eyes. So let's continue seeking a life beyond our needs. Unselfishness, a journey planting humble seeds. Together we'll discover the beauty of this path. Selfaholics Anonymous, we reclaiming what we lack. What we lack. Reclaiming what we lack.
Well, when I wrote that, I decided I wanted to have something that maybe NA group, Alcoholics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, whatever the group might be, could play that maybe 5 minutes while everyone's in the back getting coffee and kind of milling around and saying hi to each other, and the circle of seats or whatever, however the setup is, that kind of kind of an alarm, not in a good sense, saying in 4 minutes the meeting's going to start. And so I'm hopeful that anyone listening, you want to bring that in, just go to YouTube, go to Self-Aholics Anonymous. I can guarantee it's the only one with the name Self-Aholics Anonymous. And just download it and feel free to use it in your meetings. That would put a big fat smile on my face. Right now, let's bring Bob Dees, General Bob Dees, Robert Dees, to the forefront. And welcome, my friend, all the way from Alta Vista, Virginia. How you doing?
Good, Joel. Good to be with you. One other name you can add to that is D-Dad, which is what my grandchildren call me. So that's
D-Dad.
That's the
How
name
many
of it.
grandkids you got?
We have 9 grandkids. One of them from Liberia, so that's a lot of fun.
Wow. So having grandkids, we've got 2.5, one on the way, but there is nothing like having grandkids. Tell me a little bit about what happened to you and your wife when the first one came along.
Yeah. Well, first, it's the reward we get for not having killed our children. So grandkids are wonderful. In fact, our very first grandson, is now living with us in Alta Vista. He lives in our upstairs apartment. He's going to school locally and so forth. And so we have a very special relationship, always have, with that first grandchild.
That's terrific. Now, where did you grow up? And tell us a little bit about your childhood and what were some of the formative things, first memories and things like that, that kind of helped you along the way to develop what you currently believe and the way you function.
Sure, you bet. Well, I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, up in the panhandle of Texas. And it's funny, the things we remember. I remember on a hot, sunny day in North Texas when I would get under my mama's feet, she would give me a magnifying glass and send me outside and sort of get me out of the way. And with that magnifying glass, I would go stir up the biggest red ant bed you ever found, and then would pop those red ants with that. And I learned all about focus there. Uh-huh. And that was, it sounds minor, but that taught me a lot of the ability to manipulate all the resources or assets to a particular purpose and get everything headed in the same direction, and good things happen. I was the youngest, so I by 9 years and 11 years of my brother and sister, and so I really had 2 sets of parents in some ways. And my older brother was always a mentor for me, and particularly in sports. So I started off at a young age. I was probably had a football helmet on at 4 years of age and beyond, all the way up until I went into college. And so that was formative for me as well. My dad had been in the Army Air Corps. My mom and dad, you would be interested. He commanded the first. He was a Caucasian, obviously. He commanded the first black bomber squadron at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas, and he and my mom were the only white people in that entire squadron. And they would tell the funniest stories. They had the fondest memories. They had the most fun of anybody you can imagine as they were going through that experience. And so they were both people of strong faith. My mom more openly, my dad quietly. And I really didn't learn about the depth of his faith until after he died. And they gave me his Bible. And I was able to see his reflections and notes and the depth with which he worshipped and walked with his Lord. So that was all part of my upbringing, and I was blessed. It says in the scriptures, the lines have fallen in blessed places or in pleasant places, and I feel that's true with me because of the family that raised me. We had lots of cousins. My granny was formative to me, Joel, because she was a stodgy, white-haired lady, really gracious. But on Friday nights, we would assemble all the cousins, maybe 15 cousins and aunts and uncles and all of that. And then on Friday night was a worldwide wrestling.
Oh, yes.
Granny would watch that. And we wouldn't watch wrestling. We would watch Granny because she thought it was all real. And she would scream like, "Oh, they're hurting him. Stop. Make him stop." And so all of that was a very positive upbringing. I would do a lot of fishing, a lot of camping with aunts, uncles, cousins, and things. And so we moved when I was about 11 years old down to Houston, Texas. My dad was transferred down to Houston. And I found it was quite the culture change. Houston was probably advanced, not in a positive way, perhaps 30, 40 years from the quiet Oklahoma, Amarillo, right on the border of Oklahoma that I had been part of. And the things were fast and loose and wild and crazy. And so it was quite a culture change for me. And frankly, I got wrapped into some of that. And it wasn't until I went to West Point that I sort of came back to my senses on what really mattered and what I was all about.
So your brother is how much older than you? 11?
Yeah, he was 11 years old. In fact, my brother's deceased now. Both of my siblings are deceased. My sister was 11 years older.
Mm-hmm.
She died at age 54. She thought she would die at age 30 because she contracted in college a strange blood disease, and so she was a very courageous lady. Have great respect for her. And then my brother was 9 years older. He had gone to Vietnam. I happened. My mom was teaching me how to drive his car while I was in Vietnam, and we wrecked his car together. So I had to fix his car before he got back. But actually, Vietnam was a defining moment for him. He didn't see a lot of things, but as with many, you don't have to see a lot, and it defined the rest of his existence. And in fact, later in life, that's probably why he died, was from some of the alcohol and some of the other things that just afflicted him. When 9/11 happened, I'll get a little serious here. When 9/11 happened, I was deployed. My son was deployed, and the net is that my brother just sort of lost it and would call every day crying, concerned about us and our safety. And no doubt a lot of it was just he was sort of flashing back to his own Vietnam experience. So I'm sure that informed what I'm doing now on behalf of veterans. A lot of other stories that motivate that, but certainly my own brother was a motivation as well.
So in some ways, you were raised as an only child, because by the time, if I'm doing my math correct, by the time you were a very young kid, your brother and sister were pretty much gone.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah, I had a lot of interaction with them after they left the house, but yes, that's a fair way to say it.
What were some of the ups and the downs of being of that happening? Were you kind of a surprise? If it's okay to ask that.
Oh, no, it's okay to ask that. The way I say it, I was dessert. Yeah, I was later in my parents' life. The one thing that meant that my parents were a lot older than most parents of my age of a child, and so that affected some things. But it was I really don't have any complaints about all of that. I did have some interesting experiences. It just comes to mind if this relates. I was in high school, and I was the captain of the football team. And then the coach of the football team decided I wasn't playing the way I ought to play, and so he benched me. And so, as the captain of the football team getting benched, it was really a blow to my pride and my ego. And it led to a season of bitterness that probably lasted for 3 years. And I was also playing basketball. And one time the football coach came onto the basketball court for a game, and I became dysfunctional. The cancer of bitterness had really eaten away at me. And I always look back on that as one of the best things that could have ever happened, because early on I learned about the destructive consequences of bitterness. And then now, when I teach resilience seminars and things, invariably, I find that bitterness is one of the key topics. And I always do a lemon eating contest when I had to do a men's conference. And we have this contest to see who can eat this lemon fastest. And then the winner gets to describe how it tastes in their mouth. And then you discuss, well, what if it's there for a week or a month or a whole life? You have this bitter taste. And then that leads into a very useful discussion of bitterness and the antidotes, which are thanksgiving and forgiveness. So bitterness is pretty relevant for all of us. And I was grateful that I learned about the toxic nature of that at a very early age.
And how did that play out? Did you ever talk with your coach again about that, or did you bring closure to it, or how did you work through that?
Actually, none of that happened. Today I would be wise enough to do that type of thing, but just life moved on. I was amazed. My parents, obviously, it was very transparent to them, no doubt, and yet they were loving, accepting, and they just I sort of rode that wave. And over time, the bitterness disappeared. And then later in my adulthood, I learned a lot more about bitterness, and I saw a lot more of it, and I started teaching about it. And so that was my own healing process. And ideally, there would be this conflict resolution. I say the 10 most powerful words in the human language are, "I was wrong. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?" And then that begins the transaction, and the other transaction is, "Yes, I forgive you." But I know all that to be the way to navigate something like that now. But I wasn't smart enough, wise enough, old enough then to recognize it. So I just weathered that storm, and God in His grace, frankly, took that away, allowed me to recognize it was a real growth season, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
And was your dad, sometimes I know folks when they have 2 or 3 kids and then the dessert comes, like you said, the dad almost approaches it like a grandfather. Like I got tuckered out by the first few, and now I am a more casual, more hanging out with you, and not as tough on you.
Yeah.
Was that what happened in your relationship with your dad?
I don't think so. What dynamic did exist was that he just older. He lost vigor, and so he didn't have the vigor to do things with me that you might do with a.
I see. Yeah.
But also in the sense of the question, I always remember one Christmas. I was probably 7 years old, and we went over to Granny's house, and it was a Christmas day, and all the kids were wearing shorts and things, and then we were going to go back and have our Christmas dinner. And my dad felt like you shouldn't go back to Granny's house in shorts and tennies and all that. You needed to put long pants on. And I can remember a shootout at the OK Corral. Obviously, he won, but
You fought the law and the law won.
that's right. You remember things like that, and you say that must have been real hard for Dad to stay the course. And yet, for some reason, that's a memorable event where my father established a standard. He stuck by it. and that was always a useful Ebenezer, a stone remembrance
Yeah.
of that particular time of discipline that was, again, instructive.
Now, viewers, if you're live, there's something special here where you can ask questions, anything that's on your mind, to a gentleman like Bob Dees, who has done a lot of research on the topic of resilience. And so feel free to send in or type in your questions, and then Mel will determine whether or not it's germane for the show. Now, resilience, I don't know that you and I have ever talked about this, but I know you lost one of your children. Can you talk a little bit about that and some of the ways that this whole topic of resilience has emerged as a result of situations like that?
Right. Well, yeah, we did. That was the hardest thing that my wife and I had faced as adults, in our young adult lives. So we lost our daughter at birth, and what we discovered is that the body of Christ, in our case, the people that we'd been in fellowship with, gathered around us in amazing ways. And so we learned about community. And community is one of the key principles related to resilience. And it's also one of the key principles we enact at the National Center for Healthy Veterans. I mean, we're all intentional about that because community defeats isolation, which is it's a killer in a literal sense, but it also, as we isolate in trauma, it just makes it worse and worse, makes recovery more difficult. When the body of Christ gathered around us, that's the first time we had seen or experienced that. And, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And so he certainly did that. And so we saw from that. And then there's a scripture that says, comforting others with that which you've been comforted. So Kathleen and I very quickly saw that all that God had done in our lives through other people and through the Word of God, through music, through different types of, quote, therapy, all of those things helped us with others. And then, we discovered that we had a T-shirt then. Having gone through that experience, we had the T-shirt, and we found that, we would intentionally mention it, not to seek sympathy or anything else, but because there was always somebody in a group of people that could identify, that had had a similar type of loss. And so we found that there was, we were really able to comfort others. And it was only because we had walked that path. And so it's an equipping, if you will. It's what C.S. Lewis might call a severe mercy, but it is a very, it's a meaningful time to be able to give back to others the way you've been comforted.
We're going to take a break right now for our sponsor, Rosetta Universe.
Attacking Egypt was a gamble, but I believed it would bring glory to France, open up a trade route to India, and stick my thumb in the eye of the British. I never actually saw the Rosetta Stone with my own eyes, and I regret that. Take time today to learn more about the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project. And that's an order.
Well, there you have it. Napoleon says, that's an order. A project that I've been working on for a while, it's called the Rosetta Universe. Go to the QR code above, and the first point in the link tree can share more about it. We have folks like Smokey Robinson, Ben Carson, Kathy Hughes, and others on the advisory board. And it's just a very fascinating problem solving, transforming this ancient artifact into a modern metaphor for problem solving. Also, this is an incentive gift that if you want to share a donation We have a setup on jackjohnsonspeaks.com. This is a belt that I designed honoring Jack Johnson's legacy. And we've had so many people say it's the finest belt they've ever seen. It is a beautiful belt, very heavy, weighs close to 10 pounds. And we'd love for you to check that out. But let's jump back to General Bob Dees. We have Jenny Jones here with a question. She says, in some of the psychology literature, genuine forgiveness requires retaining memory of an offense rather than forgetting it. Forgiveness, however, is the easy part. Forgetting is the hard part. If you retain the memory, is there no healing? What do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. Good question. And it's a frequent question. I would maintain that we never forget, or seldom do we truly forget. And the essence of resilience is to be able to reshape the memory so that when we do remember, as we inevitably will, you don't forget something traumatic that has happened in your life. But if you can try to reshape it, when you do remember it, then you're able to cast it as a growth option. For instance, when I was doing my initial work in resilience, I learned about a post-Vietnam study that had been done. It was done by Tateshi and Calhoun at the University of North Carolina. And they looked at post-Vietnam outcomes, and then they went back and reverse engineered. They looked at what the resilience practices, and they defined in the research study, what the resilience practices had been ahead of time. And then they looked at the outcomes. And to their surprise, they found that there was a bipolar response. Some people, as a result of their Vietnam trauma, if they had a good, solid resilience practices ahead of time, instead of cycling down because of their trauma, they in fact grew. And that's where the term post-traumatic growth was defined. And so what that told me is that if ahead of trauma, if upstream, we're able to train resilience, then we're able to make a difference in the post-trauma outcome and exhibit more resilience. And so we all have different resilience quotients, but I found that in addition to the different resilience inherent in each one of us, we also have the ability to train it. And if you could train it, then that motivated all of my books, the instruction and things, because I knew that there could be a positive outcome to that. Jenny, I wandered from your question a bit, but yes, part of what we teach is mindset and heart set. And as we go through a trauma, if we work a right mindset, then we're able to deal with it better. Let me extend one more thing. When you get to post-traumatic stress disorder, and I have that from certain experiences in my military time. If you have post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the techniques that they help you understand is how to develop off-ramps. You know, as you went through a really terrible experience, you re-script the conclusion so that it's an off-ramp and it doesn't go right to the key visceral trauma that you experienced, but you off-ramp and you script it. And if you rehearse that script under conditions of what's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization routine, then they've discovered, and I've discovered personally, that really works to help you deal with the triggers that you have as you remember things. So you're going to remember things, but how do you deal with that is the point. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Willie says, Freud said we don't forget, we disremember. It is an active, ongoing process, not a passive changing of memory. Thank you, Willie.
Yeah.
Any
good.
thoughts on that?
No, I think that Willie makes a good point. I like what he says. We don't forget, we disremember. That implies that it is a process. And sometimes it'll take not days or weeks, but years as we work through the process. And it's sort of like the grief process. You know, at first the waves are really big and strong and all that, but over time the waves dissipate. They're not quite as destructive, and yet they come, and we learn to deal with them. And when a wave comes, or when a dark cloud comes over, we learn over time with the grief process and in the resilience process to it will pass. And so we just learn to be patient and let it pass.
And forgiveness. I know I went through a very dark time, which sponsored the book I wrote called When Life Isn't Fair, Coming to Terms with Life's Raw Deals. And how I kind of looked at it was I made a decision to forgive, and then my emotions took their time.
Yes.
It just didn't follow naturally, like, oh, everything's okay.
Uh-huh.
But the decision, I knew that I'd forgiven when I gave up my right for revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, I'd plotted every single scenario, like the Count of Monte Cristo, of exacting revenge. And it was when I gave that up, I knew that even when my emotions went crazy at times, because a certain song, a certain this, a certain that, would trigger maybe some memories. And but just knowing that, I just knew I've forgiven, and so that's the final story on that. And whatever my mind was thinking, the decision had been made. My emotions soon came along.
Right.
With that.
Right. That's good. I'm sure you're familiar with the movie Unbroken, Louis Zamperini.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I use that all the
Powerful.
time. I got a special video that is the actual video of him going back to Japan and working with the Japanese and forgiving them and training people how to run track and all the different things that he did with the Japanese. But it was the ultimate act of forgiveness.
Yes.
And that was pretty powerful. Yeah.
Oh, that movie just tore me up. It was incredible.
Right. Yeah.
Was it Jolie? Who was the?
Jolie,
What's her name? We're two old guys trying to remember her name. That's a lot of fun. We spend the next 5 minutes trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, right.
Brad Pitt's former wife.
Yeah.
She was
Angelina Jolie.
Yes, that's it. She's the one who produced that.
Right.
Anyway, I'd like to kind of turn a gentle corner, but it's not really a corner. I want to talk about your healthyveterans.org, what that's all about. Because I remember coming to the village and just seeing what you're up to. And I just think I'm just so fascinated, because a lot of people have ideas, but very few people implement those ideas. You've had this idea for how long, and what's it like to see it begin to come to fruition, and the impact that it's making on graduating classes of veterans who have experienced PTSD and come through your course?
Sure. Well, let me take a few steps to unpack it. When I was a young lieutenant, 101st Airborne, I've been there 3 weeks. I had about 45 soldiers. We're all jumping out of airplanes. Life's good. And now being there 3 weeks, it's the night before Easter, and I get a call to go to Sergeant Smitty's house trailer. Never a good call late at night. I went to the house trailer. He had taken his life in the back room. And then after the first responders left, I'm there with the young widow and her 3-year-old daughter. And I said, well, how can I help? And she said, well, we hid Easter eggs today. Would you come back in the morning and gather Easter eggs with us, and let's give my daughter a normal Easter? So I did. Obviously tragic, life-changing for that mother and her young daughter, but also it's tough medicine for me as a leader. And that was the first of many that I would see like that along the way during my 31 years in uniform. And so very early on, I saw a couple of things. When you leave West Point, it's like they stamp a tattoo on your forehead. It says, accomplish the mission, take care of the troops. Accomplish mission, take care of the troops. But then when I went out and my radio telephone operator died nearby, I saw that in my own world, it went from my head to my heart. And then when I saw more of the sacrifice of particularly the blue collar workers in the military, the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, the young enlisted folks that would give their life for the person to their right and left, or for the nation or whatever. I saw that they were so noble, and that calling to help them to accomplish the mission but take care of the troops went from my head to my heart to my gut. It became a divine calling. And so that's the genesis of what we're doing now. And then, as is always the case, God doesn't waste any experiences. And so through my military career and then beyond. And so then when I retired, the Army asked me to do a postmortem on 2 3-star officers that had taken their life, an admiral and a general, lieutenant general. And as I did that, I saw that this depression, suicide, all the causal factors of that, they don't know how many forks you eat with or what rank is on your shoulder. And it's a pretty universal condition that affects people. And then the Army also asked me to look at the causalities at the time in about 2003, been a while back, about 2003, the causalities of the peaking suicide dynamic in the military. And the first causality was isolation. And so I reverse engineered that, and I said, okay, the antidote to that is community. And so that's a key element of what we now do at the National Center for Healthy Veterans, is bringing people into community. We have very intentional designs of the houses, the orientation of the houses, the community centers, all of that is to defeat isolation. And then the second causality at that time, way back, was a loss of purpose and self-esteem and identity. Well, the way that we have found to defeat that is dignified work that allows people to work back in teams, accomplish something worthwhile, and it gives them a sense of purpose. And then thirdly, we just found that people didn't have the knowledge. These young enlisted in particular, but all sorts of people. If you don't understand much about sleep deprivation, or if you don't understand about some of the things that will lead you down the wrong path, if you don't understand about resilience principles, then you're vulnerable also to suicide and other things. So that for us equates to trauma recovery and life skills programs that we teach. We give them the knowledge, and then we give them the group, and we have counseling that supports that. We have equine assisted services, equine therapy and horsemanship that support that. And so all of that makes sense. And then another one is when we're trying to provide hope to people, it's important to give them career preparation skills so that they can succeed in a vocation which allows them to support a family and all that goes with that. If they don't have employment, then it unravels pretty quickly. And so very early on, Joel, at the very start, on the first couple of days when they arrive, we give them an occupational interest inventory. And yes, we're trying to learn about them, and we learn and we help guide them into their selection of various things that they do in the future. But more importantly, we tell them that we care about their future vocational success. And that starts this chain of hope that they're headed somewhere. And so you pull all that together, you put it on a beautiful 350 acres of a natural healing platform with lots of nature and horses and cattle and chickens and all those things, and a nice river on the periphery. All of that lends itself for an incredible healing culture. And so we've seen some incredible results. We code everybody green, amber, red. And where that coding comes from, I was also walking the Vietnam Wall with a lady that referred to herself as a Vietnam widow. And we walked along the wall, we got to the T's, and she starts running her hand in a circle, John Thompson. And then she looks at me and says, he's not here. And I looked with some alarm at her, and she said, oh, well, John Thompson didn't die in Vietnam, but he came home with an expiration date.
Wow.
And he had killed himself after Vietnam, taking his life. And immediately I saw that Vietnam Wall, just like every other conflict in American history, that Vietnam Wall, what you see, those 37,000+ names there, that's the tip of the iceberg above the waterline. And
My
now that
goodness.
you know what icebergs look like, and you go below the waterline, and there's fractured families, there's broken hearts, minds, souls. There's some people that are just frozen in time, and they're down there for decades. If anybody doesn't do a search and rescue to try to help them get out of that condition, and so over the last 4 years, as we've put better and better programmatics in place, we have discovered that that's our real niche. We work the red zone. We work the part under the waterline. And these are people that have fractured families, that have alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder in their background, that have been homeless. Maybe they've been involved with criminal justice. And these are the people that are most likely to take their lives, to be desperate, to give up all hope, or to be societal disruptors in one way or another. And so you pull all that package together, and we've really defined our niche as we integrate with a lot of other people. They say there's 40,000 helping organizations for veterans in the United States, but the reality, there's not a lot of organizations that roll up their sleeves and take the risk, frankly, to bring on these red zone people. And we do a lot of due diligence and things. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but we do a lot of due diligence before we bring somebody on, because if we bring them on, there's some risk associated with it, and we need to make sure that they fit within our sidelines, and we can help them, and they can not be disruptive to others in our program. So we're seeing a lot of great results. I mentioned Chubby Checker. Chubby Checker's firstborn son was in our program. He graduated. He had been, I won't go into the background. Chubby Checker had a number of 17 children by a number of wives. And so this firstborn son had an interesting growing up, to say the least. And so he had trauma, adverse childhood experiences, we call them now in a psychological term. And then he also, when he went in the military, he ended up having some traumatic experiences. And the net is that he'd been living homeless in a tent for 15 years.
My
They were
goodness.
able to police him up, brought him in. It was a real roller coaster at first, but over time, he graduated, and now he has a house, he has a job, he has a car, and he has some of his dad's DNA for singing. And so he sang the national anthem for us at our Veterans Day ceremony. And now the kicker, for me at least, is that Jack called me the other night, and he said, my dad and I have been talking a little more. We hadn't talked for more than 5 minutes over the last 20 years, just off and on, these little bursts, and it would always end in an argument. And he said, of recent, my dad will say, "I love you, son," and I'll say, "I love you, Dad," before they hang up after a meaningful conversation. So that for us is a win. It's great to see a red zone guy turn into a green zone guy, and now be able to help others in this process.
We've got about 11 minutes left here. There's so much to unpack here. But Wendell Ransom, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, a New York Times article mentioning a study on post-service mortality found that in the first 5 years of discharge, Vietnam veterans were about 65% more likely to commit suicide than non-veterans.
Right. Yeah. And I'm
Thank
not
you,
sure.
Wendell.
Yeah, that's right. That's good, Wendell. An interesting thing that we're noticing is that you would expect these military members that are just getting out of their service are the ones that show up on our doorstep. But the reality is that they're a bit older. They're usually between the ages of 30 and 50, even if they got out in their early 20s, mid 20s. And what happens is a lot of times these folks get out, they say, "I can handle it," and then they'll crash and burn for whatever reason, in business or this or marriage or this or that. Then they start getting involved with drugs, alcohol, and there's a downward spiral. And they, by the time they get to us, they're really pretty desperate, to be honest, and they've been through a number of short-term programs. We're a 9-month residential program. And in that 9 months, we do a true life reset. We say our intellectual property is how do we rewire the brain, reshape the heart, restore the soul. And in the course of that, we know empirically it takes a much longer time than a few weeks or whatever to change habits. So this 9-month program is what truly allows these red zone people to come out the other end, amber or green, and move forward. Yeah, and so a slightly different dynamic than what you mentioned on that Vietnam statistic, but yeah.
Talk about the equine therapy.
It's amazing. I told you a story about being at the Dallas, University of Texas Dallas Center for Brain Health and talking to them about our imaging devices, and we said we have a device that can detect a human heartbeat from 4 feet away, which is true. And then I jokingly, and oh, by the way, it has 4 hooves, because these horses are incredibly intuitive, powerful. We have seen amazing things happen. A lot of times people come to us shut down. They won't even be able to look you in the eye or have a meaningful conversation with you. But as they interact with the horse, and as they see their own emotions reflected through the horse, because the horse just reads you and reflects back, then they learn to communicate with the horse, and then they learn to communicate. And we've seen this happen with whole families. When we have families here, we often will put not just the veteran, the male veteran in this case, but the wife, the children, all through equine therapy individually, and then we do it collectively. And there's something about a horse, the intuitive nature of a horse, that just pulls them together, pulls them out. And then also the horse is just an incredible demonstration of how God works in our own lives. As we watch the horse work in a round pen, for instance, our cowboy, our chief operating officer, who is so talented at this, he'll work a horse in the round pen, and then he'll be able to show how the horse relates to the trainer the way we relate to God, and it's really powerful. Okay, I see a question here about CPT. I'm pretty familiar.
Eddie Johnson, my research shows that trauma-focused psychotherapies, in specifically cognitive processing therapy, prolonged exposure, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing are the most successful for PTSD. Your thoughts?
Thank
you, Eddie.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. I think it's partially true. These are the accepted VA therapies. They are proven, but I would say, Eddie, we have to be careful because there's no silver bullets. We really have to be wise as therapists to figure out what tool applies to what person. I probably get a call a week of somebody saying we have the solution to PTSD, and they'll say you only have to do this or take this medicine or do this or that. Well, I have learned to be a little skeptical of that because there are a lot of useful techniques, but we have to be careful that one size doesn't fit all, and we're not a hammer looking for a nail in a therapeutic sense.
So when someone comes, how do you vet that person without making them feel like they're being vetted? You know what I'm talking about? Because they probably have a lot of people looking at them side-eyed, and they've been going through an awful lot, and then now, I've got to go through this whole process, and I hope I can make it. Maybe not. Mm-hmm.
Well, we actually do a vetting, and I agree with the emphasis you're suggesting. They are referred by themselves or by someone else. And then we look at the referral. That it starts off with a telephone interview. The telephone interview is just sort of a get to know you and so forth. And then if that interview sounds like they're right for our organization, then we send them a formal application. We also start a FBI background check. And with that, and then with the application, we bring that in front of a committee. We have several doctors on the committee. We have some of our senior leadership. One of our docs was the licensure authority for the state of Virginia for 8 straight years. And he's just incredibly talented. and experienced. And when he looks at the meds that are on these application forms, what meds are you taking? He can tell you a whole
Instantly.
bunch. Yeah, yeah. The whole pharmacology of all of that. And so we understand people pretty well. And we also, we don't accept active addicts. So sobriety is an important part. And how do we validate that sobriety? We have found, Joel, that because most of our folks have been involved with drugs and alcohol in their past, this whole notion of sustainability of the recovery process is very important. So we do Alcoholics Anonymous on a weekly basis. We have something called New Life Recovery, so it's sort of a Christian 12-step program, and a number of other things. So we work the recovery side of it very hard to sustain that. And so we vet them in lots of ways. And some people actually come visit. Some come with their. We had a family that came. Both of them were graduates from university. He had been a very successful businessman in Houston, Texas, so very wealthy, frankly. And they walked in the door, and I said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "I tried to outrun my trauma with my job, and I found out it doesn't work."
Wow.
And the only thing he outran was his family. And so I turned to the 13-year-old daughter and I said, "Why are we here?" And she said, "We just want our daddy back." So it was a real joy after 9 months of ups and downs and this and that. When in the months 6 through 9, which is the third trimester, we have an internship. And by that time, we know him pretty well. And so we say, "Why don't you go be a welder with this local establishment? Or why don't you go do this or do that, be a chef somewhere?" Well, for this particular man, I said, "You don't need an internship on business. You've aced that course. You've knocked that out of the park. What you need is an internship on family. And so I want you to write a family business plan, every bit as intentional as what you did for your last successful business." And to his credit, he did it. And then he executed it. The young 6-year-old was an assistant to the CEO. The mother was the chief motivation officer. You get it. I'm sure somebody was the chief mischief maker in there. And so they executed it, and it really knitted the family back together in a very intentional way. So, it's we have to understand where they're coming from, what their particular presenting needs are, and then we work it. We say we're a holistic integration of proven best practices. The question about EMDR or CPT or this or that, I mean, we at times do all of those, but every bit as important is this whole culture of affirmation, love, acceptance, community that is, frankly, and the horses are powerful, all the nature is powerful. All of those are as important or more important than what happens in the counselor's office with us. Yeah.
Now, do you allow a veteran, let's say, to bring their support dog and
Yes,
to be part of
we
the
certainly
process?
do. It's funny because at first that was something that I didn't really think through. I didn't realize how important the dogs would be.
Yes.
We have, and amazingly, they all get along. We probably have a dozen dogs that at any point in time are up in our first village. And I just recognized how quickly that was obvious that's so very important. Yeah, we accommodate dogs. We also have found the need to accommodate a dog trainer. So we have some dog qualification. If they want to bring their dog, their dog's got to be a decent citizen.
Yes.
And not disruptive. And so we have a trainer just across the road from us that helps us. And we've never had to uninvite a dog, but we have had to train some along the way.
My goodness, we have one. Actually, we're done.
Wow.
We ended with the dogs, right? This conversation went to the dogs in a most wonderful way. Well, thank you so much, Bob, for coming on board. I can't wait till we go fishing again in Bahamas or wherever. And God bless you. And Anyone who is watching, go to healthyveterans.org and please donate, give. Every penny is going to a wonderful cause.
You have just experienced another episode of the Mischief Maker broadcast. Hit the subscribe button. Connect at chiefmischiefmaker.com. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And hopefully, you are now a bit closer to becoming a mischief maker in your part of the world.